In this video, you will gain freedom um, from yourself. You will gain freedom from the confusion surrounding your life of why you're doing what you're doing, of why you are involved with certain actions or behaviors, why you have certain habits, addictions, stuff like this. Um, so let's dig into it. Let's dig into it. Let me switch over to the scene and get. Okay, so this is the presentation. Um, let's talk about this. This is a fairly straightforward flow chart. Oops, let me just hide that there. A very simple flow chart of how a person, how an individual can align their life to achieve their optimal outcomes. And what do I mean by that? If you're just going about life day in, day out, you wake up, you slam coffee, you rush through traffic, work head down. You do this day in, day out. Stress, chaos, your head is filled with news, your head is filled with all sorts of information, distractions running rampant throughout your day, phone, YouTube, Reddit, internet, TikTok, hell, one of the worst. You're you're going to feel a little ungrounded, and you might not know what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. And that's the important part. What are you doing today that's going to help you survive tomorrow and onward beyond, maybe the next year? What are you doing today that's going to help your family survive? What are you going to do today for the ultimate survival of your, whatever your community is? And we'll talk about these definitions here in a second. If you don't really know what you're doing and why you're doing it, you don't have a clear vision, a clear list of what you're doing, then you're just going to be, you're going to be prey and victim to whatever is in vogue, societal norms, the reactions of society, of the modern day zeitgeist. You're going to be held captive to the ebbs and flows. What does media want you to believe? What do media want you to feel? They're going to hit you with news articles and other pieces of information to stir up anger, stir up emotions, stir up strife, stir up chaos, stir up stress. And you're going to fall victim to that. And this is a very simple template that I have here. I just drew this up real quickly in Obsidian to focus in, put your horse blinders on where appropriate. So you are focusing in your attention and your awareness on what needs to be achieved and why. So let's talk about this. First and foremost, your priorities. Now, I mocked this up for myself because this is my current list of priorities. So I do a yearly review. That is, I readily assess what my priorities are for this year, and then we'll step through this together. The first thing first, this is a spiritual channel. I'm going to be focusing mainly on spirituality, but practical spirituality. So the first thing I have here is spirit. Well, why is that? Well, my first priority, first and foremost, is spirit because I am a spirit first and foremost. I am not my mind, I'm not my body, so spirit is number one. Family. Family comes next. The safety and security of my family, my child, my wife, my dogs, my animals, right? Family, second priority. Uh, Spirit comes first because from the overflow of spirit, the abundance, if my spirit is unsettled, ungrounded, untethered, in complete disarray, then I'm not going to be able to feed into my family. I'm not going to be able to be there for my family. We'll get to further examples. The third and lastly is my body, right? I've been trusted with this body and I'm going to take care of it the best way I know how. So the body, right? So that could be your food, your sleep, your working out, movement, right? These things, sunlight, water, basic stuff. You know the criteria which a body needs to to thrive. Now, what I call orbits. Let's move on over here. So first, define your priorities. For you, it could be your body as number one. Maybe you really like your priority is your body. Maybe you're a model. Maybe you're a fitness influencer. Your body is going to be number one, right? It makes your money. Um, Social life. Maybe your social life is number two. Whatever the case is, be honest about your priorities for present time and your goal for the future, and write them down. This is not a judgment. This is not indicating what you should or shouldn't have as your priorities. I'm using this as an example. Orbits. This is the key. This is the key fact. Orbits. I have this picture. I drew this picture real quick. These are orbits, right? This is called your area of effect. You have the first individual, then you have your family, and then you have your wider community. And there's further ones out there, but they're not really applicable to this sort of conversation. Um, and mainly being is a person rarely often takes full responsibility for themselves as an individual. So if they can't take responsibility for themselves as an individual, they probably can't take full responsibility as a family. And if they can't take full responsibility of their family and the safety and security or whatever your goals are for your family, then they're probably not going to do the best at community, right? If the core is the individual in all these things, this has to be solid for the family to be solid. And for the family to be solid, you have to, that overflows into community here. So this is why I say the spirit first, because I have to, my spirit. How do I define priorities? How do I, what are some sub points underneath my spirit? Well, I could say, well, I'm going to meditate. Um, let's. I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna build a habit of journaling, or maintain my habit of journaling. I'm going to revisit childhood traumas and undo those. Right. Um, those are just several examples. But the reason how I know how to kind of what are my goals or what are my parameters here is this word survival. Let's talk about this survival in orbits, hand in hand here. So what does it mean? So there's two questions you can ask yourself. Either one works for you. Let me see. Let me drag this down here for the video. What does it mean for my individual orbit to survive? What does it mean for my family orbit to survive? What does it look like for my community orbit to survive? Or what does survival look like for my, my orbit? So these are two different questions you can ask yourself. Either one works. It doesn't really matter. What does it mean so I'm going to use the first one, and then I'll do a second one. What does it look like? What does it mean for my individual orbit to survive? Well, um, in terms of my spirit priority, the expansion of my spirit, I want to maintain a higher vibration, right? Um, on average. And over the long term, I want to trend upward on a daily, high vibration, right? I don't want to be um, depressed. I don't want to be grumpy. I don't want to be angry or, mad or whatever. So it means for my survival, for my spirit to survive, expansion is the key. Stability is the key. And I then can say, well, how do I achieve that? Well, through those habits I was just mentioning, those subpoints, that is my meditation. That's my journaling. That's creation, right? Some form of creation, some form of, am I going to go outside and create a garden? Am I going to create a YouTube video on demonstrating these ideas and practical applications? Am I going to create a puppet show for my child? These number of examples all can feed back into survival for my spirit at the individual level. And then I can say, well, how does what does the survival of my family look like? Well, wealth, health, security, expansion in that sense. Whether, does that mean another child? I don't know. It could be. Does it mean we're going to move into a different location, a different house, a better house? Maybe it's a house with more access to fresh air. Maybe it's, access to the outdoors, right? So your definition of survival could be anything. Take, for example, the body. I know the body is very important for a lot of people. Um, so, for some people, it could mean that they're going to gain survival for them, that their body, that their joints are pain free, that they are eating healthy in the sense that they're eating greens with every meal. They're eating a clean source of protein every meal. They gain 10, 15, 20 pounds of muscle that year, right? So once you've categorized and defined what does survival look like for you in the, with your priority and with your particular orbit, well, then you can then take the steps to achieve that, whatever that survival looks like for you. What does the body look like for the my orbit of family? What does it look like? What does survival look like for that? If I am prioritizing my body, well, I definitely want my joints to be healthy so I can play around and run around with my child, right? I want to have energy, right? I want to have a great energy system so it's not all bogged down and sluggish. And, I'm not a laggard. I don't feel lazy. I'm not always tired. So I can be active and be present and be, generally energetic um, to play with and participate with in play with my child, right? So that's an example of the individual orbit and the family orbit. And well, what about the community orbit? Well, I want to have the available energy for my body to say go volunteer at the local soup kitchen or do Habitat for Humanity, right? I want to be able to get out there, be active, and move, brush around and clean up the park, whatever you need. But the point is, at each of these orbits, you define what survival looks like for you, and then you dot out, according to your priorities, how you achieve that in each orbit. And that's it. That's it. Now this is an amazing tool. Once you actually sit down and do this, and if you haven't ever done this before, word to the wise, this probably take about 30, 45 minutes. You don't want to have any distractions. You don't want to have any um, YouTube videos. You could have maybe some soft music, but just be really in tune with the present day in the moment and sit down. I recommend grabbing a journal and writing this there and taking a pen and paper, not a pencil, but an actual pen, because you can't erase a pen. So there's a sense of permanence when you're writing this stuff. There's a little more meaning. Um, Write it down. Write this down. Spend some time in the moment. Spend some time dwelling on these ideas, and write out your list of priorities. What are your current day priorities? One, two, three. You can go four or five, but don't. I would recommend doing more than five. Your orbit, your individual, your family, your community orbit, and what does survival look like in any one of these particular orbits? Couple pro tips here. Once you do this, do it the first time, and then watch your life. Watch your life, observe it, and what you might find it to be interesting is you might find your days are either more aligned with the vision you've set out here, or you might find that your days are chaotic and stressful, and that you're not moving towards these different priorities, that you're not moving towards I call it this, your survival metric, right? You're not achieving what you set out to achieve, your milestones, your quality. And the reason being is, and this is a great tool for uncovering the deeper truths, is that you might have gone through this the first time and you wrote out the nice things that someone else might want you to want, but they're not true for you. This is important. You don't bullshit yourself here when you do this. Write out what is true for you. This isn't about wrong or right. This is about what is true for you. What are your current day priorities? And what does survival look like in each of these different orbits and how you achieve that? So that way you can guide your days. You can guide your years doing this. But if you're finding that you're doing something completely different, that means you bullshit it yourself and you're living a truth that is different than what is on the piece of paper. And that's okay. Just be honest with yourself and maybe go revisit this. Have a little bit more honesty when approaching this list making. And so, you know what? Maybe my spirit isn't the priority. Maybe my work is. Maybe my work is number one priority, and my spirit's actually number four, maybe number three. Maybe it comes, maybe it's not even on my list, right? So I would use this as a tool, as a measurement tool of how aligned you are to what you're saying is true. And if you're noticing any sort of gap between what you say is true for you and then what you're doing, identify the gap, write down what actually is true for you, and then live your truth. You'll find that the chaos, the lack of internal peace will slowly come back down. The chaos will come down. You will increase your satisfaction and your peace with life. This is my recommendation. Here, that's the theory. This is the application. If you don't know where you're gonna go, you're gonna go where everybody else wants you to go. If you don't know why you're going where you're going, you probably won't see it through. This ties it all up. So I hope this helps. Let me know. Leave a comment, like and subscribe if you have any. If you like this, if you like this sort of presentation. Um, Let me know if you have any questions. I can talk for many hours, and hell, we could even do some live demonstrations with anyone who wants to jump on a call, and we could sit through this together and write it out and walk through some questions live. If you would find that interesting, hit me up. Let me know. I'll be happy to do that with you guys. You have a good one.